So hi, we're from Alpha Omega London, maker of shoes at heart but creator of waves in the fashion industry. We started this podcast series to tackle head-on the current issues that matter in the society we live in today and get honest views from the mouths that matter. So in this series, we're discussing how fashion over the years has frolicked with its association with revolutionary causes and social injustices, revolutionising both the industry and the way we view gender in a post-industrialised world. So, tackling this discussion, this series, is Tamara,
Nazina,
Priyanka,
Kate.
welcome back. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the second episode. So in this episode, what we're going to be doing is discussing how important fashion is in communicating our gender identities. So what I could ask, dear Tamara, is...
Hello.
Hello.
Present.
Here. Do you portray restrictive gender roles in the way you dress? Or do you feel as though you're a little bit more gender fluid than...
Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Like, I am female
Right.
through and through.
Did
I
not
think
preempt
I'm
that.
like, yeah, I know. I just think, I know like how we spoke about last week and the whole idea, how much we feel our gender plays in who we are. I think for me, being a female is a very large part of who I am. And I think it's just feel that I'm very in tune to my femininity. And I feel at my most strongest and my most powerful when I dress like effeminately. Quite a good question, actually, like what do people wear in a job interview? Because therefore that's going to be like, what do you dress to feel your most powerful version of yourself? And for me, always a dress. And it always is. And I think it's funny that because it's such a big part of who I am, my fashion definitely reflects that. There is definitely an undercurrent of femininity in everything I wear.
Well, I think when growing up, I think, you know, as a child, like most children, I was pretty gender fluid. You know, I was in tracksuits and
See,
all
I
sorts.
wasn't gender fluid at all. I was very much like, there's this great picture of me on, I think it's my 3rd birthday. And there is pink everything. I'm talking like I'm in pink shorts, pink t-shirt, holding a pink Furby because that was my 3rd birthday present. And I was like, pink balloons, pink cake, like loving it, loving life.
Don't get me wrong. I do remember there was a nursery picture that had to be taken, and my mum completely forgot, and she actually put me in a tracksuit, and I cried because I actually wanted to be in a dress.
I have been there.
You've
I
been
kid you not, I've been there. I've like complained to my mother, why aren't you letting me wear dresses? And she'd be like, no, just wear your trousers.
Yeah.
What's up with this?
I want to be a girl. It's like, you know, forget playing with my action toys that, you know, I was given. I just want to be a girl.
Yeah.
But it was very liberating, I think, just growing up and not feeling the pressure of having to express my gender, but also another you know sort of facet to that was, I guess, my environment, particularly at school. You know, I wasn't the archetypal sort of the coveted girl that was beautiful or that had, you know, the sort of you know the sort of girly characteristics and was desired by, you know, boys. So my attention was more focused on, I guess, just doing me, really. I don't know, I just felt less restricted. So I guess my fashion pretty much then wasn't as it is now. But that's not to say that how I represent my gender now through fashion is a bad thing. It's not. Again, as you were saying, Tamara, I feel very much empowered by being a female. I feel like I've gone through the fire of the corporate environment, and you know, you're sort of really seen as a female within that environment, and you know, you really do have to feel empowered by that, and so your fashion has to represent that. So going through this whole cycle of my personal experience, I do feel as though I've gone pretty much from gender fluidity to really actually being at times very, very feminine in how I dress. And I mean, I don't know if that's the same
Yeah, I
anybody
mean,
else,
Priyanka, like,
but-
how do you feel that your fashion and dress is affected by being a girl?
I actually agree with Nazina because in my childhood as well, I never really wore very feminine clothes. Like I never had frocks and dresses in my cupboard. So, but I also like from where I come from, I saw a lot of women wearing saris. It's a beautiful garment, and I really wish I'm able to carry it the way my mother does. But
and you're from
from India,
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
So I'm from India, and women wear saris there, and a large part of the population is expected to put a veil on their heads, which I feel is very restrictive. So, you see both sides. My mom was like, no, I'm not going to let you wear dresses. And at the
Yeah.
same time, you see this. So I think that has really, that affected my nature and my perspective on things, and that's actually reflected in my fashion sense as well, because I think I wear a lot of modest clothes and not too feminine, but not too gender fluid as well. And yeah, I mean, and also I in the article I read about the Hijra community, and you see them out there in India, and they wear saris and they're gorgeous, and but you also see how they're kind of ostracized by people.
Right.
So, I mean, I always knew that, okay, there is a very distinct way for women to dress.
And Kate, how do you feel that it's affected your life and your dress?
I think it's had my sort of 50-50 tomboy, very accidentally progressive upbringing, has. I mean, when I was at primary school, I went to a party and I would want to wear a party dress. I do like, and I did like sort of a pink and things like that. But it was a pirate themed party, and all the boys had drawn on moustaches.
There you go.
So there's a lovely picture of me at about 5 or 6 in a full-on party dress with my hair, with bows in my hair, and a huge curly pirate moustache, because I wasn't going to be left out. If the boys have got a pirate moustache, I want one too.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't work as a look, but that's what I ended up with, and. I suppose my style has kind of a little bit remained the same in a way. Not quite that.
Not
I've
with
stopped drawing the
minus the
moustache on now, but just that kind of, I do like. There's a bit of me that's very girly. I like red lipstick. I like my hair, but then my hair is longer than it's ever been, but I still have to shave a bit off. Like it needs to have something that's a bit harder and a bit of an edge to it. I can't do it without that. I couldn't just do full on.
But I think it's interesting how so far, again, we've still fallen into those stereotypes, how we're kind of like, oh, do I dress girly? Therefore, it has to be pink and lipstick and lots of like pretty things. And do we feel that, because obviously instinctively we've all fallen in to like just mass generalizing that kind of feminine look and masculine look.
Yeah, definitely.
So therefore, do we feel that these are restrictive in, I suppose, our day-to-day lives? Because obviously, like I just said, that we kind of, instinctively think that way. How do we feel that those silos affect the rest of our day, the rest of our life, like how we hold ourselves, I suppose, and how we go through life?
I think just the way in which you choose your dress should be about making yourself feel empowered. And it should not be about, conforming to any social construct of what is expected of your gender. I think we're all in this position of feeling a bit of fear if we're not fitting in, and I think a lot of the sort of process that we go through, particularly in adolescence, is all about fitting in. We compare ourselves to other men and women, and we just want to see where we fit in.
I think what's interesting is that what we've, I suppose, inadvertently already discovered is that all 4 of us very much still go back to the typical stereotype of girly dress is pink and lipstick and curly hair and ribbons and bows and, you know, cinnamon spice and all things nice. And like Kate said, boys are pirates and boys are like trousers and moustaches and everything like that. And, you know, seeing as I suppose it links to, again, last week and how our environment kind of, I suppose, makes these two pools of dress and two pools of dress based on gender. But do we feel that that restricts us? Do we feel that the idea that, you know, dressing girly is pink and feminine, does that inhibit us?
I think, it's just based on circumstance again. It's just based on which environment you end up being in. It's as simple as that. I don't think we basically opt for, you know, an environment which doesn't put us in harm or doesn't create a negative response. And, you know, being able to sort of, I guess, navigate through those different scenarios, we often will portray a slightly more sort of androgynous look or a slightly more feminine look. I know in fashion, androgyny is pretty much, it's the standard for anything that's forward thinking, for anything that's progressive and trendy. And what it does is it borrows from the characteristics of both male and female. And, you know, it's almost like a suit that you can put on which kind of masks and fuses both genders. It puts you in a position where you're not easily identifiable by your sex. You're kind of made a little bit more, you know, just sort of, I don't know, aloof or fluid.
I think the thing...
And there's just more fluidity.
For me, I feel like that's... So the fluidity, it's I don't know, the rebellion against those two pools of stereotype. It's that kind of, I don't want to be the typical man and I don't want to be the typical girl, so therefore I'm going to go into this androgynous look. But for me, I feel like it kind of wipes away any... I suppose it wipes away the kind of easy stereotype and it wipes away the easy kind of quick snap conclusion that you see from when someone's dressing like that. But at the same time, I still feel that, I know how you said it's borrowing fashion from each pool, but for me personally, I still think, you know, being androgynous is kind of, it's not when could a boy possibly be a girl, because that's almost like wearing makeup and drag almost. It's like, when could a girl possibly look like a guy?
Absolutely.
And it's falling back into being androgynous is essentially when a girl doesn't wear makeup and doesn't go for the typical stereotype girly dress and dresses more masculine. And I just think if it's supposed to be like a recluse and it's supposed to be a putting your hand up and a walking away from those two stereotypes,
It doesn't
it's kind
work.
of not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you know, the thing about androgyny, though, is that it's more forgiving for different body types. You know, if you don't, and that's the thing that I think sometimes society has restrictive expectations of what they want from both male and female. And I think a lot of it is down to physical form. And, you know, you've got the fashion and beauty industries that kind of perpetuate those norms and values very well. And when you don't fit into those norms and values or stereotypes as such, androgyny is kind of seen as a forgiving, you know, alternative. And you know, for example, myself, I would wear, you know, men's trousers or tailored trousers. And the reason why is because I feel it's just more forgiving for my shape. If I was to, you know, I would buy boys' jeans because I feel it's more forgiving to my shape, and I just like the way it you know, kind of skims my figure. But I couldn't do that going into, you know, a women's store and buying the same
And so
items.
It's interesting that you know, I mean, obviously, you know, dress to look good and you dress for your figure, but that you dress, and I think we all dress for you bear in mind of how you want other people to react to the way that you dress. And do you find that, you wear the boys' jeans because it looks better on your figure, to therefore that then affects how people look and think of you? Like, Priyanka, do you feel that you dress the way you dress and you kind of harness, maybe some femininity but also modesty because of the reaction that you want people to have towards you? And it's kind of, I suppose it's the book by its cover, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little lost. I was just thinking about this beautiful quote by Harry Neff, and she's one of the, she's a very popular transgender model at the moment. And she once said that beauty is survival and surviving against the odds, which I think is so true, because I always borrowed clothes from my mom, and I would also go borrow my dad's shirts, and nobody would say anything. But today, if my brother, for instance, if he goes and wears my mom's dresses, I don't think he'll be accepted. So I think dressing, it does restrict you in a lot of ways. And I think, I don't know how much I agree with androgyny, because I think it's just so ruled by masculinity.
I guess, but then again also, like, does it give females more power because we're able to dip into both gender pools, whereas are men more restricted? Do we actually have the upper hand here because we're able to be in the female stereotype and also the male, whereas men are just left to that pool? Just a quick reminder, you're listening to the AO London podcast. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen on, give us a review, and carry on the protest. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
I feel that there's just a few too many extremes. You either go one direction or you go the other. It's almost like, where's the happy medium? I don't want to have to feel like I need to look a little bit more like a man to kind of draw less attention to my gender. I don't know what that then says. Is that because I shouldn't feel empowered by being a woman?
I think that's the thing when you were talking about sort of agender and that, and it being more flattering. It takes you away for different figures. It solves some problems there, but it's also sort of disguising the figure. Is that
right?
Is that a thing with just like personal safety?
Yeah,
that you feel if you disguise a little bit, if you sort of disguise the rounded edges, you're physically a little bit safer because you're not so identifiably female,
right?
Which
not so exposed.
Potentially sets you up for being,
absolutely, and you learn
whistled
that
at in the street, shouted at from a van, and everything above that.
Right, and all these encounters you discover when you're an adult.
Yeah.
Or maybe even earlier for some, but you would have to be in those environments to kind of be alerted to those
and I
responses.
think, although then you could say, well, gender neutral fashion is, that's technically that's helping with a problem. You can adopt this and it will but it's not actually solving the problem.
No.
The problem is that shouldn't happen in the first place.
Yeah.
And you wearing a baggy t-shirt or something, that's not solving it. It's just kind of like, it's just sort of whitewashing it, really.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it kind of, we seem to have come full circle back to the idea that we dress and we incorporate our gender in relation and in proportion to how we want or how people do perceive us.
Right.
And, how you said, Kate, that, you might dress less, less in a feminine way because you don't want to draw that attention. Or you might dress in a more feminine way because you do, and not in a sense. I do not mean in a sense
but
that,
to
like,
feel empowered. I mean, it might just be in a setting.
Sense.
You go into a party or whatever. There always has to be a setting.
That's where you feel most empowered. Like I said earlier, I feel most empowered when I am feminine and when I am wearing, dress and heels, and I look nice, and I feel that it makes me feel confident when I'm the best version of myself. And I know that my best version of myself is when I am dressed like that. And it is because I do want to have that kind of counter reaction. You do dress it for yourself, of course you do, but at the same time, you dress like that because it might evoke a certain response, or therefore specifically a non-response, because that's what you're aiming for.
Do you think that will change over time? Because
what concerns me is that I feel that, again, fashion, it's subject to trends. That's what fashion is. So like, there's a distinct difference between fashion and luxury. Fashion is very like, it's susceptible to trends. And I think that androgyny is, part of me does feel like it is a trend. It's the kind of fashionable thing to be right now. But I think because it tackles so many bigger issues, I would like to see, I suppose, like the ideals of it. But because, I mean, personally, I don't dress androgynous. I can't even say it. Androgynous. I can't say it. Androgynously.
But meaning more personally for you, do you feel as though you mentioned how empowered you feel when you are true to who you are, which is, you being feminine, or a female, sorry. So do you think that your style will change over time, based on, I don't know, it could just be based on so many factors.
So personally, I think, again, like I said, it's the ideals of it. So the ideals of not wanting to evoke a response. And I think that is something I suppose very poignant. And I think it's the idea that you can go down to Sainsbury's literally in your pyjamas and a big parka because you just don't care. You just don't care what people think. And I think it's very much like taking that mindset from that fashion sense, from that dress, take that mindset of, don't want a response. I don't want you to look at me and think either way. I want to have a non-reaction. And I think that's very powerful, and it's something that is actually empowering in itself, because you're kind of trying to wipe away that preconception. So I think, in that sense, the ideals behind androgyny, said it right that time, is something that I'll definitely bring forward. But again, for me, I think you find your rhythm in life, and you find your dress that suits you most. And I think for me, what I've found that suits me most is dressing to my gender.
Yeah.
And that is what sits with me most.
But it doesn't define you. That's the thing, though. It doesn't define
it's
you.
not. I don't think it's who I am, but it's very much part of who I am.
Yeah,
and I think, again, like, I study fashion as well, so I go to London College of Fashion, and it's a piece of the puzzle, it's just another piece of the puzzle that makes me who I am. And no, it's not, it does not embody me. I am not my clothing, and I am not my interest in fashion at all. There's so many other facets, but it's a part, and it builds a part of that picture. But I think also, it is such a massive move, and I think obviously, like, just if it isn't gonna affect me that much, I definitely think it will affecting the industry now, and I don't think it's necessarily a trend that will fade.
I was just going to say, I think really, like you said, it's about the ideas behind it. It's about the ethos that's behind it. That shouldn't be the trend. I think the products that are coming out at the moment very much are. But the actual ideas behind it we should be looking at, and like as a long-term industry.
Like personally, I think I feel the most confident when I don't have to try to look confident. And for just today when I was coming here on the way, I was wearing that the winter jacket, and it's so thick and nothing seen, and a man winked at me on the way, and I had to like look back if he was following. I felt like winking, but I was like, no, I can't take the chance at the moment. But
Priyanka, here you go.
No, because I just want to give it back to him,
on the prowl.
Just want to give it back to him, nothing else. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this, but anyway. So that happened, and then I think that I don't know if it's our clothes that attract these reactions. I don't think it's got to do with clothes anymore. Like, there are times when I want to wear a skirt. There are times when I want to wear androgynous clothes. There are times when I want to wear saris. But I mean, there are still reactions that you get that you don't expect. So the day that stops, I think you'll feel the most confident.
Isn't that just so interesting that we are not too concerned with our genders? It's the response. It's the response that you get from others reacting to your gender.
I mean, it's so true, because, for example, like I said before, like when I feel most confidence when I dress femininely, and it definitely a big part of that is because of the reactions I get, because I might get a seat on the tube, or it's when people hold a door open for you, or in an interview, if the interview's a male, it's different, and it's like, but you play to that because you know that's the strength necessarily.
Right,
You know,
right.
you know that's like
But then
strength.
you know when to play to that, in what sort of
Context.
context and what scenario
Exactly.
and what environment.
Exactly.
And this is quite interesting again, because you're
Yeah.
you're playing to the response that people have towards your gender.
Absolutely.
And you care to sort of amplify it when it suits you.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like, I mean, I'm sitting here in jeans and a hoodie, but to me, because I've put it on and I'm a woman, that's women's clothes.
Yeah.
That's not being
Yeah.
like, maybe it's a bit tomboyish, but
Yeah.
I don't see that as a gender
Yeah.
particularly,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
a gender for me is kind of about the whole look. I've just put this
Absolutely.
on
And the
because it's
philosophy.
comfy
Yeah,
and this
yeah.
is how I like to
Yeah.
dress.
Yeah.
It's more functional. and,
But it's not. But it became women's clothing as soon as I put it on.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess to conclude, following on from what you said, Priyanka, is the industry changing, and is the industry actually responding to the consumers in a sense that it's not just male and female anymore? It's not just you either dress in girls or boy clothes. There are so many brands that are doing a gender or genderless lines, and I guess, I mean, it poses the question: are they doing it for a quick profit? Are they doing it because it's a trend right now?
Definitely, I think that that definitely plays a huge part. However, I do feel that there's enough merit to sort of suggest that people are just a little bit gender fluid. I think agender in itself is slightly different. It's a different, sort of concept altogether, because you're looking at individuals that don't feel that they either fit into that sort of cisgender male or female, box, and they're trying to almost find who they are through the way in which they express, themselves through fashion. So that's slightly different. But I think generally speaking, there is probably, as we've all very much agreed upon, there is a real sense of gender fluidity that we commonly, sort of include in our wardrobes pretty much, every day, if not every day, every other day. But that there is I think the industry is responding to that, but then also I feel as though now it's going into a slightly different avenue. It's taken on a slightly different approach. It's possibly revolutionizing, I guess, the way in which designers are now bringing out their lines and how they're actually marketing, their lines.
Thanks so much for listening. Please let us know your thoughts and carry on the discussion on social media at @alpha_omega_London. Please subscribe on whichever platform you listen on and leave us a review to carry on the protest.